Who says our politicians can't agree on anything these days? All 100 U.S. senators, Democrats and Republicans, signed off on no tax on tips. This was the headline from NBC News. Senate unexpectedly passes the No Tax on Tips Act in unanimous vote. And yeah, I'd say that's pretty unexpected. So let's unpack this whole thing, how this no tax on tips thing would work, and how the heck the entire Senate actually agreed on something. Let's start there, actually, because does the Senate ever agree on anything 100%? Actually, yeah, they do. You see, this decision wasn't some big vote like you see on C-SPAN, each senator casting their vote one by one. The decision to pass no tax on tips was known as a unanimous consent request. A senator presents a bill or resolution, and if nobody objects, it passes. So technically, no tax on tips didn't get 100 yeses, it just kind of got 0 no's. This process is often used for political posturing. One party brings up an idea that's important to them, baiting the other party to object. That way, come election time, they can say, my opponent voted against this, that sort of thing. And that's why unanimous consent is most often used for more non-controversial items. Things like increasing investments in semiconductor manufacturing and cleaning our oceans and lakes, honoring soldiers killed in a training mission overseas, or congratulating charter schools. All of this stuff unanimously passed the Senate in the very same session as no tax on tips. Think about that, though. Chuck Schumer and John Thune agreeing on something. Yeah, but no tax on tips has been bipartisan, actually, since the beginning. You remember both President Trump and Kamala Harris promoted it during their campaigns. Republican Ted Cruz and both of Nevada's senators, both Democrats, introduced the bill in the first place. And so here we are. No tax on tips kind of gets this slam dunk in the Senate. All right, so how would it work? Well, it applies to tips that workers report to employers. Those workers would be able to deduct up to $25,000 in that tipped income on their taxes. But this is limited to workers whose annual income is $160,000 or less, which is a pretty decent amount of money. Now, how would people realistically apply that? And I'm glad you asked. The budget lab at Yale University found tipped workers made up 2.5% of employment in 2023. That is about 4 million people. They didn't break that down by annual income, so it's safe to say and to assume fewer than 4 million people would actually benefit from this. But something's telling me if more workers can write off tips on their taxes, then more workers might start asking for tips. Problem is, most people think tipping culture is already getting out of control. A 2024 survey from Bankrate found 59% of Americans have a negative view of tipping. 34% said they're annoyed by the tip screens that they encounter at coffee shops and food trucks and everywhere else. 14% said they'd rather pay higher prices and get rid of tipping entirely. Even though the Senate doesn't really seem to find this controversial, it's actually a pretty nuanced topic, and we went in depth on this a couple of times in the last year. You can find those segments on the WRAL YouTube page. In the meantime, let's rekindle the conversation, shall we? Because here we are. It may actually be happening. Send me an email, dan@WRAL.com. What do you think about this no tax on tips? What's good about it? What's problematic about it? What could cause some issues? Should the House pass the Senate's bill, send it to the president, make this thing legit, or is there more to consider here? Tell me what's on your mind, and we will go in depth.